Hello and welcome to the Super League Pom-Cast. Yes, don't worry guys, it's not another rebrand. This is just a new and exciting podcast that'll add to our content throughout the year and the next couple of years. As we delve deep into the Super League, we'll do little episodes on teams, we'll do little episodes on the way the comp's being run. And this is a little introduction into that because a lot of things have happened over the last few, I want to say couple of months actually. It's not even a few months, it's a couple. And I'm joined today with the debut of this podcast with a guest. He is known as the old fart of the Only in Rugby League podcast. And it is, of course, he's been on the pod before when it was the Ramblings of a Sane. It is, of course, Andy from Only in Rugby League. How are we doing, Andy?
Thanks for the intro, mate. That's brilliant. I've reached the stage in life where I'm the old fart from the other podcast. Yeah, well done.
Well,
we've only had one rebrand. You've had more than Lee Leopards.
Well, I have at the minute, yeah. So this is what were they? Lee Centurions, Lee Leopards. Hopefully, mine's a little bit more classier than Lee Leopards. I hope there won't be any Sheryl Crow sort of outfits coming out.
Nobody dancing in the background.
No. I won't be going full diva on you. Don't worry about that.
Fair enough.
So today's episode is about exactly what's been going on in the English Super League and English Rugby League in general. We're going to be ranting, we're going to be raving because I'm just fed up. We're going back to our ramblings of a Saint roots. Andy, what is going on?
I think you're quite lucky, because you miss it all over there, don't you? First of all, from where you are, and not from you, but generally, is there an apathy in Australia as to what's going on here in this side of the world in our game?
See, there are certain people that follow Super League, and they are very far and few, and not really that many, to be honest, over here. But whenever I chat to them, they seem to have sort of it's bad, is what they normally say. As the Aussies tend to add A on the end of everything. I don't really know why. Look
at the beginning. Look, it's bad,
Yeah. And it's sort of, there seems to be that, but they also are kind of also not bothered because, the game's flying over here. The general consensus over here tends to be we need a strong England. So I think if English talent go over to the NRL, that end up starting like your Farnworths and that, I don't think they're bothered as long as the international team is good.
I think where they might be bothered down the road is where we've heard for a while, haven't we, that the NRL will be having a stake in Super League or taking it over.
They would like a stake.
Way you want to put it. Yeah. So if that doesn't happen, or if the rumours gather and what happens over here affects that, then people might be a bit more interested, might they?
Yeah, completely agree. And I think that's where the main problem is, because people still talk about, the NRL still taking it over. And I think that what has gone on recently with the appointment of Mr. Fathead to oversee a review into the game, and I said it when he came back into fruition, thanks to Degsley and co. I don't think it will happen in the stake of they will purchase a stake of Super League. I think the only way it will happen is if they come in and go to the clubs, look, we're setting up our own comp, do you want to come? And I think that's the only way. They will not have anything to do with that man at all. Nigel Wood, by the way, for those wondering who Fathead is.
Who Fathead is, yeah. It's not another one of my names, is it? Yeah.
No.
It's, but
no.
I think with Nigel Wood, I think basically we know the brief story, don't we? So we know the fact that he was chief exec, he was chairman of the Rugby League, He left, took back over Bradford Bulls. We'll talk about Odsal, I'm guessing the ground, Bradford Bulls ground.
Yep.
And now he's back. He's like, Eminem, guess who's back? And it's like...
Thing is, we paid him off to leave because he
Right.
wasn't taking the game anywhere. Eamon McManus stated that.
So I think
8
the
years
best way
ago.
with this, and I think you're right. I think the best way to this is to look at his first spell, which is from early 2000s, somewhere around that time, right? Now, when I've read what Eamon McManus has said about this, he has been credited with a massive increase in revenue in rugby league circles, and I think the revenue got up to about 52 million or something like that while he was in.
Yeah, we'll talk about this.
Yeah, this is while he's in charge. Yeah. Then,
but
he was also go on.
But the sporting landscape has absolutely changed. The sporting landscape has changed. Football's got absolutely huge. It's a conglomerate. It has taken over everything. Women's sport has changed. Women's football has taken over.
Yeah.
The whole sporting landscape, and the most important thing out of all of this, Rupert Murdoch is not in charge of Sky Sports. He always overpaid for his baby.
Yeah, you're right. And, absolutely spot on, because at that time...
Anyone could have got that deal, I think.
The football contract was tens of millions. Then it became hundreds of millions. Now it's billions. So that has a knock-on effect, everyone, because...
And darts.
And no sport in the world can compete with football.
No.
So you have to be realistic and say, okay, well, what's our value? If that value is that, what is rugby league's value? So they were saying that he increased the TV deals. The rugby league had profit every year. Year on year, they were declaring a profit. There was increased Sport England investment through DCMS, the Department of Media, Culture and Sport, with the government. We had things like, in his first thing, which I'd completely forgot about, Skytry, which was worth about $2 million a year and was supposed to get about 700,000 kids.
Skytry?
Yeah.
Was that the academy thing?
Yeah. So it was worth about 100 grand. 100 grand. It was worth 2 million. And it was supposed to be getting about 100,000 kids to play rugby league. And the long-term aim was to get 700,000 kids to play rugby league. That was the long-term aim of it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can come back to that because you can say, well, actually, why is our pool shortened then? Because in tandem with that, the Sport England money has then reduced.
Didn't we get lottery funding as well?
So the way it works, because I used to work for Sport England. I used to work with the governing bodies. So basically, the way it works with funding for Sport England is they used to do it on, when I was there, they used to do it on 4-year cycles, and it was a 4-year plan. Okay, and you would get so much more. So you'd get so much money for each year. And they would say, right, so we're getting £10 million over 4 years off Sport England. Okay. Now, what people don't realise or didn't realise was that Sport England, after 2 years, could claw back some of the money if targets weren't hit.
Okay.
Now, you'll never hear that, because what you'll hear is that Sport England have give £10 million for 4 years, but they might have to claw half of that back because they haven't met targets, and that was always the case with Rugby League. Rugby League never, ever once in these development plans from Sport England never hit participation targets.
Right.
Never. So again, it's a little bit of a smoke and mirrors thing, and then you're saying, right, okay, well, instead of a 10 million, now they're clawing 3 million back off us because we haven't hit those participation targets.
Yeah.
And then what happens then? On your next cycle of 4 years,
you'll get less. You'll get the 7 million.
Exactly, or less, because what you've got to do on your whole sport plan, you've got to then put together what you've achieved over those last 4 years.
Right.
And Rugby League's problem was all because what
was that a case we got set too high of a target for our areas that we cover, or is it just that we failed to hit?
We failed. Yeah,
good targets.
We failed. So one of the targets, for example, I remember this. One of the targets was to have England as one of the top 2 playing countries in the world on the
Well, that
international
should have been
stage.
easy to do at the time.
Exactly. And at the time, it was. And there was no saying about being number 1 or anything like that. This was number 2. So basically, you were planning to be above, at the time,
New
you were planning
Zealand.
to be above New Zealand. Yeah. Then you're saying, okay, well, we're having all these participation things. Now, a lot of the time with these kids that were playing were in places like Ipswich and non-heartland areas. Now, that's okay giving kids a taster of rugby league, but what happens then?
Where do you build from the taste?
Absolutely. And
You can have a
of
little nibble, but you need the full meal.
course you do. And that then brings you into all the stuff around what's the plan going forward professional wise to like what are you doing? Are you looking after your heartland clubs? You know, the ones that have Oldham's a good example, shall we say?
Yeah.
Who were in the doldrums
Produced
for years.
loads of talent.
Absolutely. Or are you saying, well, actually, our expansion plan, we're going to be in Toronto. Oh, and what a team in New York.
Mm-hmm.
So where does it all fit together? Because I don't see where the pyramid is on this.
Yeah.
And if your bottom of your pyramid is you look at where you are now, and you look at the bottom of the pyramid is so much wider, isn't it? Which allows the top of it to be better.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah, you only have to look at like the amount of clubs that recruit from areas like, for example, there's a place called Dubbo. Liam Martin came from there. Thingy who played Cade Ellis came from Dubbo, and Dubbo is a 4-hour drive away from Penrith. Like it's 6 hours from Sydney, and like they've managed to entice players to them and play there, and they've got a much wider scope over here because they put the funding and the foundations into that, and then they've expanded from that. You only have to look at it now. Whereas when Super League came in over here, they decided to go, right, we're just going to be the rival to the Australian Rugby League. We're going to expand, and we're going to go bring in Perth, we're going to bring Adelaide, we're going to bring all these teams in that were like a wide scope, and then they didn't really have a plan, so it wasn't sustainable. So eventually they knew that, right, well, it's not sustainable, so we're going to have to fold and we're going to have to agree. And then they decided to go, right, there's going to be a long-term project to get the likes of Perth in, but we're going to have to focus on getting our own house in order first.
Yeah.
Which is what they did and what they've
Absolutely.
done. And they had a 25-year plan from then, from when they merged the Super League and ARL. They had a 25-year plan, and now we're seeing that 25-year plan go forward.
Absolutely.
In Super League, we've only ever done things 3 years in advance.
Yeah, but it's interesting.
5 years at most.
Well, when you talk, that's interesting. What you've just said about a merger. When you talk about the merger then between the AFL and the NRL. So you talk about that merger there years ago. We've always struggled here with a lack of clarity in a governing body who does what.
Huge. Well, they literally, the perfect example was the other year. They said we're going to merge Super League and the RFL. What did they do? They created a third body in Rugby League Commercial.
Exactly that. And that even goes back
How does
to
that
things
happen?
like... Well, that goes back way back to like the old Barla days and English schools and things like that.
Yeah.
There's always... Everybody wants their bit of power. Everybody wants their bit of importance in the game rather than look at...
Its own ego.
What's best for the sport as a whole, and everybody wants their own little bit of
ego farming.
And this is where I feel with Nigel Wood, he wants more of the importance.
Yes, and he always has done.
Well, I mean, I look back. I mean, he made himself, or he was voted. So we say he was voted. Going back to in his first spell, he was chair of like the equality and the diversity group.
He was chair of International Rugby League as well.
Exactly that.
At the same time.
And took credit for the 2013 World Cup as the tournament director. Sally Bolton was in charge of the World Cup with John Dutton as her assistant. Sally Bolton then went on to be the chief exec at Wimbledon at the All England club. And
it was a success because they decided to build on the city foundations. So they had teams based in Manchester, in Liverpool, in Leeds, up in the northeast, etc. But yet, when it came to the last World Cup, they scrapped the city idea and went, "Oh, we're going to do St Helens, we're going to do Warrington, we're going to do."
Yeah.
Why? You've just killed off all the progress we made from 10 years ago.
Well, do you remember a while ago? I know we're going off track with Mr. Wood, but do you remember a while ago?
Well, we'll come back to him, don't worry.
Well, we had Coventry, didn't we, as this sort of
Coventry
as the next big thing in Coventry, because we had Four Nations, we had double headers there, and all sorts of things going on at Coventry. Now that's just
they got one Australia game.
I went to a double header.
That was the closest. The main bulk of Australians that live down in London. There's over 50,000 Australians. That was the closest they got to an Australia game.
I went to a double header there. It was the coldest night I've ever been, and it was England and Scotland, and it was Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah,
and it was a really good night. Except the lads I went with, I was coming home after because I had work the day after. It's funny though because the lads I went with were all going out in Coventry after, and they went to this match just in shirt and pants that they were going out in after.
Oh, like they were going to one of them games.
Oh, they were
like they were going to a Yornian game.
They were froze, yeah. Anyway, they all went out after. And they all ended up meeting all the Scotland team. Matty Russell, Lachlan Coote. They all had the other night out with them in Coventry, and they thought it was great because nobody knew who they were.
Yeah, of course.
But Coventry just dropped off the face of the earth, didn't it? As far as rugby is concerned,
Absolutely, but that's a halfway point. That should have been the hub because it's a halfway point between the Northerners, where the Heartlands are, and all the Aussies, all the Kiwis that live down in London. There's over 90,000 of Aussies, Kiwis, and Islanders that live in London.
Yeah. So I think if you look at his first spell, the signs were there because, and if you want to talk about other things that he did in his first spell, let's talk about sponsorship.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about sponsorship of the league where there was no money coming in.
Yeah.
The Stobart deal.
We were giving it away.
They were giving it away. It was like
for 100 wagons.
Raffles, wasn't it? It's like one of those raffles to get a shirt sponsor, wasn't it?
Yeah.
£5 in. If you get drawn out, you get your name on the shirt. That's what it was like.
He turned down Betfair for that though. Yeah. Betfair wanted to sponsor us, and then they went and sponsored the darts instead.
Yeah. Pizza, free pizza for players after games, and
That granted, that wasn't Nigel Wood, I don't think, but it was still summarises undervaluing the product.
But the stage is set.
And Papa John spent $2 million for non-league football cup.
Yes, so absolutely, yeah. But the stage is set, isn't it? If you give your value away of nothing to Stobart previously, what does it say to the next lot of sponsors coming in?
Exactly that. We can take the piss here.
So you can say exactly. So you can say
we can lowball them,
but indirectly it is.
Yeah, definitely.
So in the meantime,
a very good point.
In the meantime, his salary at this point has rocketed to over $300,000 a year.
Literally, over $300,000 a year.
Yeah.
For a CEO of a failing sport.
Yes, and at that time, I'll go back to the Sport England stuff. We got the Sport England money again. What's not widely reported is that it was actually 40% less than the previous round.
Jeez, that's how little targets we hit then.
Absolutely, and that's a lot. That's a lot of money, And then on the back of that, you look at then things that, and it all adds up. It's all a big picture, isn't it? Dropping in attendances, dropping in funding, dropping in TV revenue, dropping in, participation at the time, I think, dropped something like, I'm not exactly sure, but it dropped something like about 120,000 players to about 40,000 players that were registered to play.
Well, also, they did a stupid thing, because my mate used to coach at Northampton, a team down in Northampton. Bedford Tigers, I want to say. But he said that what happened was they used to have basically quite a lot of funding down south, and then when that funding got cut, And basically, it was developing quite a lot down in that Midlands area and down south.
Yeah.
There was loads of clubs. He said there was like over 20, 30 clubs in that area.
Yeah.
And there was loads of participation going on down there. As soon as like the money got cut, what they decided to do was, rather than these regional things, they put it as like a district coordinator. So basically, they went from having people that were pretty much overlooking all them areas to just going, right, well, we're just going to put one man in charge of all of that. And they never really got down to a game, and then eventually clubs started to fold.
Exactly.
And then participation went down from like, I think there was over 10,000 participants from Midlands and below down to like barely hundreds. Like, and now I think there's only 9 teams down there, he was saying, that down in that southern region, and there used to be like over 30.
So on there, if you're in charge of that strategy,
because they prioritise the northern towns.
Yes.
And the northern funds.
But you've got to have, like we said at the beginning,
got to have a balance.
You've got to have a top end aim with that.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like if you revert to football, right? In fact, you can put it in rugby league, right? So let's say you're a club, like you're a Saints fan. So let's say, right, okay, Saints have they've had the most successful women's team for the last few years, probably up to this year, right? You can say, look, they've had learning difficulty.
They're the most successful.
Teams. Yeah, physical.
Men's.
The physical difficulty teams. You could say, right, you've got this great academy, etc. They could have wheelchair teams. Exactly. That's the whole club.
Yeah.
Top and bottom of it is that deep down, people don't really care about that if the first team is not doing well.
Yeah.
The first team in any sport, in any club, the first team has to be the focal point of the club.
And in 90% of them, it's the men's team. 99%.
Of course it is. Of course it is. And the town.
Yeah.
Because you shouldn't underestimate, whatever sport it is, the feel-good factor that club produces. And it's not the club that produces it, it's the team that produces it.
'Cause it's a community.
And everything else in the club and the community stuff bounces off how that first team are doing.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Look at Warrington now. So, for example, with their social media posts, like they're putting about free Wolfie, this, that, and the other, but yet they're 8th, if not 9th, I think maybe. So like, and they're just getting backlash. Yeah, it's a great thing to do to create banter and stuff like that. Only when you're winning.
Yeah, when
you're a club that size.
You've just said it. Look at the backlash they're getting because of it. But going back to that other point, what I was trying to say was that you need that top end aim, and you need a team that's going to be successful in that. Otherwise, all these kids and all these amateur teams, and all these junior teams that in this non-heartland areas, they need something to aspire to. Now, all those kids are not going to go and play for Saints, for Wigan, for Leeds, or whatever, but they need something to aspire to in their area. Whether that's Midlands Hurricanes, whether there's a plethora of teams in that area, they need something. Now, if your strategy doesn't involve doing that and setting that up at that level, it's built on sand. It's always going to fail because you need something for them to progress to.
Absolutely. Especially with that. And if you've got nothing in them areas, like you say, if they've not got a top flight club or they've not got a championship club at the minimum,
that's right.
Then them youngsters coming through are going, oh, well, I'll just go to Union.
Now you've a lot more clubs. Now you've 3 strands to this. One is what we've just said. The next one is, what do you do then in your heartland areas? Because the rugby league, they abandoned things like service areas and things like that, which were a great pool for attracting players into academies.
Yeah.
And they got abandoned. So it's, what do you do there? How does that marry up with that? And then thirdly, what's your expansion strategy? Like, so you've got all these kids playing in Midlands, and you've got all these kids playing that, and you've got all these little clubs, and then you're saying, actually, what we're going to do is bring Toronto in, we're going to bring Toulouse in, we're going to bring. We could have a team in New York in 3 years. Well, how does that marry up with that bit? There was never, to me, when you read these plans and you looked at the stuff they were doing with Sport England, there was never. They were setting themselves up to fail.
They were going for gold when they hadn't even got bronze or silver yet.
Absolutely. Yeah.
effectively.
Yeah.
They were going for the big jackpot,
Yeah.
but only staking £2 a go.
That's it. It's like they're having a lottery lucky dip. That's it, and hoping to win it. That's what they're doing. But
It
then
was, yeah,
you've got so
literally.
the figurehead of that. He has to take accountability for that because that's what
Yeah.
he's there, and he's taking the accountability.
And his accountability was getting a 320 grand payoff.
Yeah, yeah. To which he did what with?
To
Before
which,
what?
oh no! Before that, sorry, when he was head of the RFL, he purchased Ostal for 1.2 million
Yep,
in 2013, wasn't it?
yep.
Or was it earlier,
Roughly
2012?
round about that time.
And then 5 years later, he got the sack, got a big 320 grand payoff, and decided to
Yeah,
buy Bradford Bulls
yeah,
with a stadium entrusted effectively to them because the RFL had the lease, and then they bought it back for a fraction of the price. Was it even 100 grand, maybe even
no,
less?
yeah.
So the RFL made £1.1 million lost, and
Yeah,
Nigel Wood has a club. He
yeah,
is now he's now got a ground effectively for free,
yeah,
and he's now found himself not only anointed as a temporary reviewman because they couldn't make him the CEO of the chairman of Super League.
yeah,
They've decided to appoint him as the chair of the third franchise of English Rugby League in Rugby League Commercial and found a loophole. And
yeah.
what do you reckon his recommendation is going to be to improve the game?
If I had to guess, I would say it would be a 14-club Super League, including Bradford Bulls.
What? You reckon?
I reckon.
And
It might be.
what have the reports come out this week?
If what? Sorry.
That have you seen the reports that came out by I think it was Aaron Bowie that did it? That
Yeah.
suggestions have already been touted for a 14-team Super League with 2 teams not being paid a penny
Yeah.
of central funding.
Yeah. Yeah. I think. Do you know what? Before you get on
And
to
you'd have to assume that Salford will drop out. You'll have to assume. So then I reckon Bradford will be that 12th side to get that, and then it'll be 2 others from IMG points. Another thing that we haven't even spoke about.
well, no, it's on my list, but yeah, just as
I knew it would be.
just as an aside, yeah, just as an aside, should Salford drop out?
Yes,
If they get their finance in order,
they won't.
right? If they do,
No.
should they drop out?
Yes.
Are you saying then that they've sort of, I don't know, brought the game into disrepute with what they've
Of course
done
they
this
have.
season? Yeah,
But it's not just been this season. They've been going bust for 25 years.
yeah. If you support a team that plays Salford twice at home, in effect, you've wasted 2 games of your 14-game season ticket.
Yeah. Saints fans are experiencing that.
Yeah. But
now.
yeah, haven't you? You know, it's
And if you're playing 3 times, like St. Helens have, or will do
Yeah.
after this week, you've
Yeah.
got 3 buys.
Yeah. And no, I agree. I agree with you.
If they sell the club right now to Sydney Roosters or to whoever has a valid plan, and they pump in, clear all the debts, and rebrand them to Manchester, let them stay up. If they don't do that, bye.
If they don't do that, there's not much difference in what they've done with Bradford, with Halifax, with Widnes. The similar.
You can't make
scenarios,
exceptions.
No, the similar scenario.
If they were going to make exceptions, it should have been for Bradford because it was
Yeah.
one Super League.
Yeah.
But you can't just do that now because a load of fans kick off on Twitter.
No, you're right. Yeah, yeah. The other question I want to ask you before we get on to his second spell, because originally we'd come in to lead
We've
this
got
review.
we've got half an hour and we haven't even got through his first spell.
I know. That's how bad it is. The second one, though, right, is what I want to ask you is, which nobody really asks, I suppose. What is the RFL? The RFL isn't, to my mind, and like I said, I've dealt with a lot in my working life. So the RFL isn't a governing body. They don't govern anything. Does that make sense?
Well, we had this conversation when they bring if you've got to bring in people to give you advice, consistently give you advice, which they have done for what 50 years, on and off.
Say IMG is just the latest on a long list going back to
if
David Howes when he was in charge in the 80s,
and they've got to tell you how to run the sport.
No, then
but
who are you?
You're not running the sport, but then also they are running the sport because IMG are the latest people to come in, give them advice, tell them what they need to do, and they don't do it.
No.
So what's the point? Why are you wasting money on these people?
IMG will be no more soon. Because they're not...
But they've signed a contract. They can't be no more. They're getting 450 grand.
Okay. All right. So another way, how many of the recommendations do they take on?
They won't take any of them on.
That's what I'm saying.
I reckon that within 3 years, promotion and relegation will be back. Not even 3 years. With Nigel Wood at the helm, it'll be back next year.
It goes round in circles, and promotion.
Which it should never ever be a thing, especially in rugby league. When your pot is that small, and you talked about getting your house in order first. You cannot do that if you've got teams consistently going up, down, up, down, up, down with the funding that rugby league has. You cannot do that. The NRL found that out and they franchised it off and they've started making money since then. Problem is, we never stuck with franchising. We gave it 4 years and then went, let's go.
But then I wonder, for example, so there's no promotion relegation. We've got a 14-team league, right? Okay. Are you saying that it's Salford out, so there's space for 3?
Yeah.
So who are the 3?
Well, it will be Bradford. I don't think it should be Bradford, but it will be. Mm-hmm. And then your other team is York and Toulouse.
Okay. So why?
Or London and... my ideal 3 is London, York, Toulouse.
Yeah, but it won't be.
But it won't be. It'll be Bradford and one of them 3 will miss out.
Yeah. So
more than likely Toulouse.
So why are Oldham spending so much money?
It's a good question.
I mean...
Well, it's Nigel Wood, so actually, yeah, Oldham probably will be in.
Well, there's rumours, isn't there? I mean, if you look at the players that they've signed over the last 12 months, and then there's rumours now that they're signing Johnny Lomax next year. There's those sort of rumours. So, they're full-time. Why? If they've got this glass ceiling, why are they doing it? Because if you were an owner at Oldham, I wouldn't be putting my money into just a top of the league championship club because you can't make any money off it, can you?
No. Can't make any money in Super League.
No. Well, look at. I mean, I think there was 10 clubs that posted big losses, wasn't there, last year?
Over 1 million.
And out of the 2, one of them was an anomaly, wasn't it? I think it was Huddersfield, wasn't it? There was a reason, and I can't remember what it was, but there was a reason that they posted a profit. I can't remember what it was.
I can't remember either.
It was something that wasn't.
And then they sold something, probably.
Yeah, it was something like that. So what I'm saying is that the IMG stuff, and you're getting IMG points for this, that, and the other. Is that where Oldham are gambling to say, okay, well, we will increase we could win the championship. We're back at Boundary Park, big football ground.
Got the facilities, got the training ground.
Yeah, they've built a brand new training ground.
I don't think they'd get that many points over the likes of York and Toulouse with the training ground and everything else. And the women's team.
Yeah,
actually, the women's team don't go towards the IMG points, which I think it should really.
So that's what I'm asking. It's like, why are they doing that? If they don't know something that's going to happen behind the scenes.
It's Nigel Wood, so anything can happen.
Yeah,
Nigel Wood, so anything could happen. If in his perfect world, Catalan would drop out 2, and it'd be Bradford, York, Oldham, and Batley or someone like that.
You're
and
probably
that'd be
right.
it.
But there's a few clubs like that, isn't there? Batley,
Or
probably.
Halifax, or
There's some there that to a lesser extent, isn't they? Like Batley, like Halifax, like Widnes. There's a few.
yeah,
There's a few on that periphery, isn't there? But if you look at his second spell, I mean, there was an absolute coup by the clubs, wasn't there, to get rid of Simon Johnson?
yeah.
And
But why did clubs have so much say? Like you said, the RFL govern it, but what do they govern?
they don't govern. That's my point.
Because
They don't govern.
I very nearly swore. I don't want to swear at the minute, but how the friggin' hell can the likes of a League One club say, I don't know, name Hunslet? Are they still a thing? Are Hunslet still a thing?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
how do they have the same say, the same power as St Helens and Wigan?
Yeah.
How do they have that?
No, you're right.
That would
And
not happen over here at all.
No, but they don't govern anything. They don't run Super League.
No.
They don't govern anything. But when you look at his second spell now, this the club's coup of Simon Johnson. The only thing I would say with Simon Johnson is the visibility of him was nil. I don't know what Simon Johnson did.
Nor do I.
If you look at Vlandis, where you are, everyone knows who he is. Everyone knows what he does.
Yeah.
What's the finance guy? The one that set everything up going? Andrew Abdo. Everyone knows what he's done and who he is. And you know the RL commercial thing that he was appointed chair of. The last guy, Frank Slevin.
Yeah, I didn't even know who he was.
If I'd have asked you a month ago who Frank Slevin was, would you been able to tell me?
You could have asked me yesterday, mate, and I wouldn't have known who he was.
So what has he actually achieved?
Nothing. But why was that division set up? I still go back to that question. Why?
Yeah.
And we talk about the RFL and what have they done and this, that, and the other. And I will go on throughout. So the current one is Thingy, the former Hull FC man, and he the CEO of the RFL. What's his name now?
Not Hetherington. Pearson. No.
No. What's his name? Oh well, the chair at the RFL. He got the job after what's his name, Ralph Rimmer.
Yeah.
And he was in the office next door. They did a worldwide search for him. Tony Sutton, that's his name.
Yeah.
They did a worldwide search for the next successor of the RFL. Worldwide, they said. And yet they found the best man for the job was in the office next door.
Also, he's on.
What's he done since he's took over?
He's just been the invisible man, hasn't he? I mean,
He comes out for Magic Weekend and that's it.
I mean, Ralph Rimmer. I mean, what's he remembered for?
And he got like a $250,000 payoff or something.
Making racist comments. That's about that's about the only thing I can remember about Ralph Rimmer. You know?
Making multiple racist comments.
Really, yeah. I mean, but Tony Sutton, he's on the strategic board, the review board. So I've looked at this. So there's a Northern Ireland secretary, Lord Kane, Abby Akoku, ex-Bradford Bulls player. One of the board observers, there's Jamie Jones Buchanan, and there's a lady that I know, actually. She's a nice lady. She's called Jo Drapier. And
yeah.
Jo is the strategic partner, what title, of partnerships for Sport England governing bodies, yeah? Mm-hmm. She's a board observer as well. When I knew her, when I was at Sport England, she was running the community foundation at Bradford Bulls.
Oh.
She's from Bradford. No, I'm not. Don't get me wrong, mate. I'm not saying. I'm not questioning. I'm not questioning her.
I mean, you're insinuating.
I'm just saying it's all kept. It's all kept within Bradford. That's my point.
It's all kept within Yorkshire. That's the most worrying thing.
diversity. Barra, Ikram Butt, Bradford.
Wasn't he? I was going to say he was Bradford and London, wasn't he?
Yeah, he played for Bradford, and he was the rugby league. He was the rugby league officer for Bradford Council. Yeah.
Isn't he like a dentist now or something? I can't remember.
No.
I know he's a doctor or something.
I think he's just an important person. Yeah, Ikram. Yeah. But again, they're all Bradford centric, and I don't think it's.
The problem is they're all Yorkshire centric.
Yeah, it's no coincidence.
The Yorkshire people are renowned for being tight.
Well,
they're renowned for looking inwards, and they're renowned for not looking at the bigger picture.
I mean, I understand Eamon McManus's frustration sometimes when he says that every club gives $5 million to the rugby league, to the RFL, and he was saying, what do they get for that money?
Nothing.
You know,
but the clubs own their licenses. So if the NRL came over and went, look, we'll throw a profitable competition, 10 teams, you're invited. What would happen? They'd jump ship in a heartbeat.
Yeah, because we don't get anything right. I mean, I'll tell you what. I thought the Challenge Cup day, the recent Challenge Cup day.
Yeah.
I thought was a fiasco. You've got
the kickoffs
game on first, right? Then you've got like an hour and a half between the end of the women's game and the men's final. Then you've got the 1895 Cup at 7 o'clock or whatever after that, like in an empty stadium.
It's mental, isn't it?
Absolutely
but it's
nonsense.
basic stuff. It's basic stuff. And like you said on your podcast when you guys were talking about it, schoolboys, no one cares about other than the parents that are going to be there.
No, it's just
so
tradition.
put that on at like 9:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
And then have the women's game on at 11.
Yeah.
The 1895 Cup at 1:30.
Because you've got separate
Challenge
rooms.
Cup final. Challenge Cup final at 3:30.
And it's done.
And everyone's on the motorway up. And also that means that the fans of the 1895 Cup will probably stay for the next game because they'll make it up. They'll make it up.
Of course they would.
They might leave 20 minutes before the end or whatever. But
then we don't get it right as well in terms of like, well, when is the Challenge Cup final? Oh, next year it's the end of May. Oh, this year it's June. Oh, next year it's August. But it's it's ridiculous. We don't get anything right.
But also, nothing's ever locked in long term. Everything's locked in 12 months in advance. Over here, they announced Magic Round on a 3-year contract.
Yeah.
So you know that it's on the same weekend, in the same location, for 3 years.
And you can book your hotels.
Over in the UK,
transport.
It's 12 months. If that. Sometimes it's like 6 months.
Well, look at the
Magic Weekend got penciled in November, and it was in May.
Yeah, I know. And look at the international series for the last couple of years. I mean,
3 months beforehand.
We lost a test last year because Samoa were at a wedding.
Stephen Crichton's wedding, and he didn't even play. He didn't even come. He was on his honeymoon.
We only had 2 tests instead of 3 because of that.
Yeah, and Jerome Luau's best man.
Yeah, it's bizarre, isn't it? It's absolutely bizarre.
But the thing is, if you remember about that test, Samoa pulled out completely. They said they weren't even going to bother.
Yeah,
and then that's why we had to negotiate because half the team were at Stephen Crichton's wedding, and so we renegotiated and gave them essentially more money.
Yeah,
than what we initially offered.
So
for a 2-game series.
So whoever's the chair, it's like there's more to it than organising these extra teams in Super League or whatever. There has to be a top to bottom. This strategic review just seems to be about the amount of teams in Super League and the amount of money, because basically that's all the club chairmen are bothered about. From an RFL point of view, there needs to be an international calendar locked in. There needs to be a calendar of events locked in, including if we're going to stick with Magic, then that's that. And I think we will stick with Magic on the basis that They see how popular it is in Australia,
And it
so
makes
I think
profit.
they'll see that, and they'll make profit. Yeah, and then but there needs to be where the Challenge Cup's going to be placed. What's going to happen with the 1895 Cup? All this sort of thing.
It
This
needs to be
calendar
locked
thing.
in till 2027, 2020. Well, even further than that, 2029.
Exactly
Has to be
that.
locked in.
Exactly that. And then it's what you're going to do to make sure that you stick with your funding, that you get the maximum funding that you can from Sport England because you are meeting all your targets. And it
Yeah.
doesn't seem to be that. And again, that's just as important at the top end because the pathways then come through. The academies get stronger, the clubs get stronger. There's more homegrown players coming in because it all has to start with the participation targets in the right areas and the catchment areas for the clubs.
Absolutely. And you look
And
at even like London that we've kind of give up on as a catchment area. There are 9 million people in and around the city of London in
yeah,
that area. If you get 1%, not even 1%,
yeah,
if you get 0.1% of kids playing in there, you'll have more juniors playing in London than you will in most teams up
yeah.
north.
And,
Most
and
towns
that
up north.
and that has to be
Like
the same.
0.1%.
And that has to be the same. That sort of like approach has to be the same if you're going to go to places like York.
Yes.
Now, a lot of that will probably happen through their foundation and things, but it has to be a little bit like you said before, a little bit like Perth Bears. This has to be set in place now for whenever they're going to come in.
Yeah. Or even if you go, right, give them word and go, right, this is the plan for Super League. If we're hitting our targets here, you're going to be a club in 2031 in
Yeah,
Super League. You're going to
but
be a club
yeah,
to
that's
the
right.
next team, whatever. The Midlands Hurricanes, which I think is a pretty
Yeah,
substandard rebrand as well. But the greatest
yeah,
mascot ever in Gus T. And then go to them, you're going to be in 2034. And
yeah,
then you're going to
but,
come up in this team if you
yeah,
hit these targets, if we hit these
that's right.
targets.
And you're going to be in 2028. Therefore, we will fund your development program now for the next 3 years in order for you to come in.
Yeah.
But if you don't do that development program, you're not coming in.
Yeah.
And that's and it's not that hard. It's not that
Yeah.
hard. It's not that hard. And we are talking, and the reason it's not
We're
hard is
talking simple
because
stuff.
we're not
The
talking about
basics.
we're not talking about a Northwest Counties football club here. We're talking about elite sport. We're talking about an elite competition with top class athletes
With
and
full-time
runs
athletes.
with full time athletes, with full time boards, with a lot of the time with really decent stadiums. We're talking about good crowds. We're talking about TV deals. This is elite sport.
Yeah. And you can sell that dream to kids easily. Oh, you
Yeah,
guys playing football. Do you know the actual percentage of how many footballers make it in
exactly
England that
that.
are
Yeah,
participating? Why don't you come join
yeah,
rugby league?
right. Yeah,
And, you can be a full-time athlete and the percentage of you going up goes from 0.001%
yeah.
to 1% or whatever. Or even more than that, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's how many? There's probably like
Absolutely.
8% maybe.
How are we working with athletics clubs and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Where you can develop all this stuff, and but that's where the whoever's the head of the RFL, whether it is Nigel Ward or whoever, that's where that needs to be. That's part of the job description and a real key part of it. Otherwise, he says nicely, moving on. Otherwise, you end up with the standard of competition that we've seen.
Yeah. What we're going to do here is we're going to stop this recording and we're going to go on to a part 2 and talk about that in detail because we're nearly at the 50-minute mark just talking about Fathead and
Yeah.
his game. So we're going to stop it here, guys. And the episode will be out in probably a day or two after this. And we'll be talking about the standard of Super League and how it's evolved over the years and changed, thanks to all the stuff that we've talked about in part 2. Andy, thanks for joining us for this episode. It's been a pleasure talking about this, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Thanks, mate.